Purification. Sorry. They study the Vedas to that end. But through fruitive activities and sense gratification regulated by the Vedic rituals, one is gradually elevated to Krishna consciousness. Therefore, a realized soul is in Krishna consciousness should not disturb others in their activities or understanding, but he should act by showing how the result of all work can be dedicated to the service of Krishna. The learned Krishna conscious person may act in such a way that the ignorant person working for sense gratification may learn how to act and how to behave. Although the ignorant man is not to be disturbed in his activities, a slightly developed Krishna conscious person may directly be engaged in the service of the Lord without waiting for others' Vedic formulas. For this fortunate man, there is no need to follow the Vedic rituals because by direct Krishna consciousness, one can have all the results one would otherwise derive from following one's prescribed duties.
One day, Krishna and cowherd boys were wandering in Vrindavan, and then the boys started feeling very hungry. So they, as always, they turned to Krishna. What should we do? We're hungry. Krishna said, there are some Brahmins performing sacrifice over there. Why don't you go ask them? Because whenever there's a sacrifice, all kinds of food is being offered. So the kids, the boys went up and asked these Brahmins. He came to them very humbly and said, we understand that in the course of these rituals that you're performing, you shouldn't be disturbed. But we're very hungry, and Krishna has told us to come here and ask you for some food. So although it's the middle of the sacrifice, still, we feel it's all right for you to give us food because it's always appropriate to feed children. So the Brahmins were so wrapped up in their sacrifice and their rituals that they did not even look at the boys. Have you ever had that experience where you ask somebody and they don't even want to talk to you? If not, go on book distribution sometime.
I was going to say.
Yes. This book distribution is very much in the mood of the cowherd boys approaching these Brahmins.
I never thought that. That's nice.
So they came back, and what did Krishna say? He just laughed, and he said, when you're begging, you can expect to be rejected. Don't worry. Never mind these men. So now go and ask their wives. In the Vedic paradigm, in classic Vedic culture, there is a great gulf of difference in the duties of men and women. And all of the elevated, exalted rituals would be performed by the educated men. Women were practically not educated. And so their business was in the home, raising children, cooking, cleaning, and that was where they belonged. The education only was for the boys. And so these men, with their knowledge of rituals and sacrifice, held a superior position in society. Yet when the cowherd boys came to ask the wives said, oh, Krishna is hungry? We'll be right there. And they gathered all they could from their homes, and they rushed to be with Krishna and brought him all his food. And Krishna was so pleased with them and thanked them, and the boys all thanked them. And then he said, okay, now you can return to your household duties. And they said, no, we've come here, we left all that to be here with you. Now you're sending us back. And Krishna said, even though these duties that you have, and even though the husbands that you serve are not the best, it is still your position, it's still your place. But you can do these things and remember me. So in this way, the cowherd boys were satisfied, the wives were satisfied, everyone was satisfied except who? The Brahmins, yes. They saw, oh, look what happened. Our rituals kept us from offering food to the very purpose of our sacrifice. He who is the very purpose of our sacrifice. We were so wrapped up in our duties and our rituals that we missed this. We have no love for God at all, but our wives were so simple, they're full of ecstatic love. So they cursed their rituals. They damn the rituals, damn these procedures. We've wasted our time. So then Krishna, hearing this, came to them and said, "Oh, you can now you don't have to be afraid of Kamsa anymore. Don't worry about Kamsa," he said. And they said, "No, no, no, we don't want to let him know that we're talking to you." So even though they were making all these strong pronouncements, they at the same time they were still afraid.
You didn't hear that, did you?
We didn't meet you.
So this verse talks about not disrupting the minds of ignorant people who are attached to their fruitive results of prescribed duties. Now, this is vastly different than what Bodhi is talking about in Claremont. Okay, you know, this verse is discussing people who are actually following the Vedic processes for gradual elevation.
Right.
So the devotee could go to them and say, "Hey, you're taking a very difficult path here, taking a long way around." So the Prabhupada gave the example of walking to the top of the Empire State Building or taking the elevator. If the goal of the Vedic rituals is Krishna, why go through all the rituals? And yet some people are attached to the rituals, particularly in India. We see this. Do your family have any?
No, yeah, I got a family
In India. So did you grow up with these sort of ritualistic things in your home, Pradeep?
yes,
Very faithful, right?
yeah.
And what is the motive behind these rituals that you saw your family engaged in?
I didn't know. Motive,
Yeah, purpose.
The
Why
purpose.
they're doing.
Why were they doing it?
like becoming better.
Get better life.
Yeah, better life.
Like help, pray for it. Like when it's hard time coming, they pray for. Like we can like go through that hard time.
Hmm.
Like I'm also like when the exam time, like I pray to the God, whatever I study, this that kind of person can come. So I can like,
Saraswati, knowledge is
Need someone.
actually from money.
School can really make you pray.
yeah.
Yeah, so when there is spirituality or religion practiced for the purpose of material benefit, this is called really kaitava dharma, is cheating religion. That it is for the purpose of getting some return. There's a story about an old miser who didn't believe in God, but he was getting old and getting sick, and then he thought, maybe I should, just in case. So I went to the church, he put $5 in the box, and immediately after that he died. So then as he came to the pearly gates of heaven, the angel saw him and said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, No, I gave my $5. And the angel said, "Wait a minute, let me check the records." He came back a couple minutes later and said, "Here, take your lousy $5 and go to hell."
That was
The point is that any kind of desire associated with our religious practice, any sort of expectation is in what mode? What mode is nature? Passion. Mode of passion, right? Religion is performed only for fruitive returns, only for some kind of benefit, even liberation for miser, you know. The idea of selflessness and giving of oneself is lost to the fruitive worker. It's also lost to the intellectual who's just trying to understand God through objective criteria. Because why is that? Because there's no commitment to a relationship. The people who use Tinder to find a date, you know, they'll check out. They want to learn everything about this prospective person, and they decide swipe right, swipe left. Should I take it? Won't take it. No commitment to the relationship until they really check out the person. So this is the Jnani's approach to spiritual life, to understanding God. I want to know everything, and then I might decide to have a relationship, and maybe not. Yeah. First, let me know everything, and then I'll decide if I will do God the big favor of believing in him. Like, as if Krishna needs our belief, as if Krishna needs our devotion. He wants it, but he doesn't require it. So in the Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami says, Anya vilasita shunyam jnana karmadyanavritam anukulena krishnanu shilana bhakti uttama. Have you done Nectar of Devotion in Bhakti Shastra?
No,
Sorry,
not yet.
It's one of the most important verses from the Nectar of Devotion. That's Anya vilasita shunyam jnana karmadyanavritam. Service to the Supreme that is performed without any trace of desire for just abstract understanding or some kind of return.
Yes.
This is pure devotional service. So what we're talking about in this verse, in this purport, Srila Prabhupada is referring to people who are actually following the Vedic rituals, who are praying to God, who are on the path of development gradually. And they are attached to those religious practices to the point where there's no question of surrendering to God. We're just asking God for help. Like I was raised in a Christian family, and at the church we would pray, Our Father who art in heaven, give us this day our daily bread, forgive us trespasses, lead us not into, and let us forgive those who trespass against us, lead us not into temptation, deliver us from evil. It's like this whole shopping list, things we're asking for. All very nice things, but we don't have to ask Krishna for bread. We don't have to ask Krishna for even developing character. We just have to ask Krishna for what?
Love, devotion.
What?
Service.
Allowing
Service. Service is what I'm
Yeah.
getting. Service, yes. We're asking Krishna for service. And if that service puts us in difficulty, so be it. If that service allows us to be have everything very convenient, so be it. Either way, there's a beautiful pastime in the 6th canto where Maharaj Chitraketu is traveling throughout the universe. So Maharaj Chitraketu became enlightened in a very difficult way. He had everything in the world except the sun. Finally got the sun, and then the sun was killed by some relatives who were jealous. And so he got the sun, which gave him so much happiness, and then he lost the sun, which gave him so much grief. And then his guru taught him that yes, this is the nature of the material world. It all looks so permanent, but it's also temporary. And we're just counting on so many things being there that are completely unreliable, starting with this material body. So the king Chitraketu, after becoming enlightened, then went on traveling Sankirtan. He organized a beautiful celestial airplane, chariot of the gods, and traveled throughout the 3 worlds, chanting the holy names. So he came upon the planet of Lord Shiva, Kailash, and there he saw a very unusual sight. Lord Shiva was giving Bhagavatam class, and his wife Parvati was sitting on his lap. And so to Chitraketu, this was rather, can you imagine that in the temple? Somebody would, yes, he would laugh, just like Govinda was laughing. Chitraketu was laughing. And Lord Shiva was not even slightly put off by this, but Parvati was very upset. And she said to him, "You're laughing, then you take birth as a demon." So Chitraketu Maharaj landed his airplane. He came over and he offered his obeisances. He got on the airplane and left. And so Parvati was puzzled by this. She was expecting something different. What was she expecting? Reaction, and that he might do what?
Curse back.
Curse back.
Ask for forgiveness.
Ask for mercy, yes. And she was surprised. Why didn't he ask for some leniency? And so then Lord Shiva spoke this beautiful verse. Narayanam parak sarve nakutaschana vidyati svargat pavarga narakishu natolasudararkanam. That the devotee of the Lord can be in heaven or hell. It doesn't matter. Why? Because it is always, the motive is always, how can I serve Krishna in this situation? So this is all the devotee asks for. You know, sometimes my godbrothers, I was a young brahmachari, they used to say, Krishna, please engage me in your devotional service, prasadam room after prasadam room.
I like that.
Yeah.
You like that?
Yes. Now this brings up another point related to this, that if our goal is selfless service to Krishna, and we don't perform our chanting, we don't do any of our spiritual practices for getting something from Krishna, then is it appropriate for a devotee to think, Krishna, please let me leave this material world? Is that some kind of a motivation?
Yeah, it's a desire.
It's a desire.
It's a desire.
So does that interfere with our desire to please Krishna?
No, it does not interfere with our desire to please Krishna, but I've heard that even a desire for liberation can hold you back from getting liberation.
Mm.
That you should really kind of be desireless. You know, not desiring liberation, not desiring, anything that and you will merge.
Well, liberation have many levels of meaning. You know, for some people, just to take a human birth is liberation, right? Because they were destined to become animals.
Right.
But for a devotee, liberation is a subordinate purpose. In other words,
Servant and master.
generally liberation means let me be freed of the miseries of this material world. Okay, that's the general understanding of liberation. So in Krishna consciousness, liberation is a byproduct of service. And so the devotee may pray, Krishna, let me serve you in the spiritual world, where it is much more desirable.
Yes.
Prabhupada writes in the Gita that we should be fascinated by the information of hearing about the spiritual world. So for the very advanced devotee, the devotee can say, Krishna, leave me in this material world, or let me go back to you, whatever you want me to serve. That's very advanced. We don't have to be on that level. It's all right to be motivated to say, Krishna, please let me make this my last birth by serving you. And let me continue my service in the spiritual world in a more favorable environment. So that motivates us. And that's okay. That doesn't interfere with our pure devotion. But the idea of trying to take Krishna consciousness for some kind of ulterior purpose, this is what we're talking about. We don't want anything but to please Krishna in the most favorable way. See, Krishna consciousness is very enjoyable and it's very sweet, right? And materialists can't imagine why we would live like this. Right? Following the four regular principles.
Yeah, they're like, oh, yeah. You're really happy. Trust me,
Yeah.
Short change in life, right?
Yes, that's right. Very small window when you can actually live in an ashram and be immersed, right? It's, in the early stages of life or the latter stages of life. And in between, there's many years of generally worldly responsibility. And that's all right. But my point is that we have this precious human life that is meant for serving Krishna. Taking the slow path of rituals and religion it looks very foolish from the perspective of a bhakta. It looks like, why should I take it so slowly? Why should I, if I already know, like for example, the Beatles, very famous musicians, world famous, and amazingly creative. You know, none of them could read music. Even my dear friend Javi Prabhu, a world famous musician, at least in South America, very famous. I was surprised to know he doesn't read music. So generally, if people want to be musicians, they'll do something like, okay, let me learn the practice and learn the notes and the theory and the techniques. But if somebody is actually creative and expressive, they don't need it, right? So in the same way, if we understand the purpose of the Vedas, then to know all the details is not necessary. In the 15th chapter of the Gita, Krishna says, Veda. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Yasmin begatum vijnanam. And if you know the purpose of something, then you know everything about it. In the second chapter, also, Krishna gives this beautiful example that a well can use you water to bathe, to drink, but a huge reservoir, a lake, can do all of that and much more. So similarly, all the rituals of the Vedas can provide you some necessities, but they're not necessary for one who knows the purpose
They're
behind it.
like little lakes, but you have the great ocean that all the lakes come from, and you're going to the little lake, and you could go to the big ocean when you have the primal source, you know, yeah.
Yeah. At the same time, Krishna is saying if somebody's attached to religious practices, and the wise person does not disturb them, rather engage them in works of devotion. I was thinking of my dear godbrother Vaisheshika Prabhu. He loves doing book distribution. He spent years and years doing book distribution. So he's out on the street, and as often happens, he'll meet Christians. And the Christians tend to be a little bit on the sectarian side, perhaps some you might have experienced.
Oh, yeah.
One of my godbrothers told me an encounter he had with a Christian. He said, here's a Bhagavad Gita. He said, I don't believe that anyone who reads that book is going to hell. So you only believe that Christians are going to heaven. He said, no, not all Christians. He said, oh, so you only believe that people in your church are going to heaven? He said, not everybody in my church. So when Vaisheshika Prabhu will meet these kind of more sectarian types of people, he will say, oh, you're a Christian, wonderful. We need more spiritual people out here. Keep up the good work, and just go on.
Smart.
Yes, not trying to argue and debate, no, but rather appreciating their spirituality, not trying to undermine it or question, and then moving on. Really what we are looking for is people who are through with this material life. You know, as Queen Kunti says, that if somebody is on the path of material development, it's very difficult for them to fully give themselves to Krishna. Kwama Kinshana Gotra. It is like how does that verse start? Janmai
Janmaisha Jasuta Sivi Edamanam Adapramanam
sorry.
Kama Kinchana Gocha.
Kwama Kinshana Gotra. What Kunti says is that if somebody wants to take a better birth in the next lifetime, as those who practice in the Indian ritualistic system do, or those who are looking for an education to get a leg up on business or on career or on prestige or wealth. Wealth is like in Kali Yuga, if you have money, then you are a gentleman and a scholar, even if you are by other measures a scoundrel and a low class, but if you have money. So Kriti says if you want these things, then it's very difficult to approach Krishna with sincere feeling. But what we're looking for in our efforts to share Krishna consciousness are people who've come to this point of saying, there's nothing in this world for me. And there's nothing in this world, but at the same time, I need people in my life. And therefore, let me associate with people, other people who have this perspective and this value. There's nothing for me in this world, and yet I have to live in this world. So let me live in this world in such a way that I would just take the minimum that I need. And not be thinking about accumulating a lot. I have a friend in Ohio who was telling me recently that at his work, he's a senior employee there, he's very competent, and his coworkers are always telling him, why don't you just do a little bit more, take a little more responsibility, you get so much more money. But he enjoys going to the temple and volunteering, and he takes a lot of responsibility in the temple community. So he tells him, no, thanks, I'm good. So I appreciate this, this mood of just wanting to do everything that we can for Krishna, whatever situation we're in. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Griheng Tako Vani Tako Sada Hari Boliga. Whether you are grihastha and busy in worldly things, or you're sannyasi and fully renounced from this world, you try to serve Krishna by chanting the holy name. And you can always do that. So those are some thoughts
Very nice.
initially. Any discussion?
Any question, comment,
Or reflections?
reflection?
How do you feel in your spiritual life? Like, are you at a point where you can just say, Krishna, take me, I'm yours. I don't want anything but you.
Sadly,
So, okay, so
I still feel drawn towards the world.
you feel drawn towards the world.
I won't lie. I've tried to overcome it, but it's really bad.
The thing is that, what is Krishna telling Arjuna to do throughout the Bhagavad Gita?
Surrender,
And then surrender, and then,
serve.
and yes, and particularly,
I'm sorry.
specifically, he's asking him to serve in what way?
Selfless. Krishna wants you to serve
Dharma.
in your dharma and serve.
And for Arjuna, his dharma was?
Fighter.
To fight.
Catch you.
To fight. So could he be fighting without being engaged in the world?
No.
No. Yeah. So the whole point of Bhagavad Gita is to bring us to a point where we do our service, our dharma, like the lotus leaf is resting on water. It's on the water, but it's not wet. Right? We're in the world, but not of it. In biblical sense.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah.
In the world, but not of it.
So if we're drawn to the world, that means we probably have some service to do in the world. Right? It's not that we are afraid to tackle that responsibility, and it's a lot of responsibility to be a householder. You know, I had 10 years as a brahmachari, and then I've been married now 42 years. And in the brahmachari mode, you're always saying, "Oh, it's so much easier to be a householder." You know, you have all this sense gratification. You have all this independence. You don't have Pran Govinda Prabhu over your head saying, "What are you doing?" But in fact, it's much more challenging to be a householder. It's much more difficult. Why? Because you have to produce income. You have to maintain a family, and at the same time, you have to keep up your spiritual life. So the ashram is for that training to prepare you for that inevitability. Inevitability is the wrong word, but that likelihood. Yeah. So if we are feeling a certain inclination to be in a position or a dharma or an ashram, it doesn't mean that's categorically wrong. Okay. In fact, Arjuna is a prime example. Just why, at the beginning of the Gita, is very confident. So confident he's telling God, he's basically engaging Krishna as this Uber driver. Take me between the armies. And then he loses his nerve. But by the end of the Gita, again, now he understands, oh, I'm not fighting for the kingdom, I'm fighting for Krishna. So then again, he's very confident. So in your ashram time, just realize you're in an educational period.
Oh, it has been. Yes, very much. Learn a lot about myself and others, and just how to deal with certain situations, and spiritually elevated tremendously.
So under Pran Govinda Prabhu's direction here, you will be at a point where you can fearlessly be in this ashram situation or another ashram situation, and nothing's going to stop you from chanting your ends. Nothing is going to make you break regulative principles. And if we just do those things, we will progress. Okay.
Yeah, I have a lesser question. In the sense that I was thinking about Kailash Dham is in the Himalayan region. You know, I can, but I mean, I don't remember reading the story in Bhagavatam, but how? I mean, how do you chip the faith to be in an earthly personality also? That all these pastimes took place in the Himalayan region, but you said in the planet of was that in the Srimad?
Do you remember? Kailash. I thought it was the planet of Kailash, but was it a mountain? Was it?
It's a guest house in Kubera's planet
Ah,
between here and overlook, subtle, is not like a physical, like for us to see.
Yeah.
But if you read in Mahabharata, Bhima was in that place. Bhima was in the Himalayan region, and he met Gauriya. And
But Bhima, you have to see, he's a their father child. He has that power to travel in space.
no, but it's been explained that he went in the Himalayan region,
Yes,
and
yes.
he fought with the Rakshasas or Yakshas, and he met Kuvera.
Yes.
But it was all in the Himalayan region.
Mhm.
So sometimes, I don't know, I mean, it's not too much of a big point, but sometimes if you meet like, people scientific minded and things, that they get
Yeah, well, it's not, yeah, real technical.
But anyway,
A lot of
it's
things may
so-
not be, revealed to you if you have a not proper.
But maybe we can discuss it with more detail.
Well,
In
yes,
fact, I want to,
well,
but
yeah,
there is not for.
but it's a reasonable question, and the answer Prabhu gave about the subtle nature, that there are different planes of existence, right? And we're trying to see all the different levels from our level.
Yeah.
Which is the natural proclivity. Sadhuputta Prabhu gave us a nice example, like we read in the Bhagavatam, and Prabhupada also said that the sun is closer than the moon. Right?
Well,
He says, first it's Sunday, then Monday.
Hmm.
And so that flies in the face of our perception. The sun closer than the moon. The sun is, the moon is a higher planet than the sun, as far as Earth is concerned. So he gave a nice example that if you're in New York City and a person tells you to meet him at such and such an address, and you go to that address, but the person is not there, so you are wondering, where is this person and how could he be at this address? That person is way up on the top floor of that building at that address. So in one sense, you're right there. In the other sense, you're a great distance away. So the moon planet is like that. The moon is supposed to be close to Earth, but as far as that other dimension is concerned, it's much higher. So I'm trying to understand the physical connections between these different planes. It's beyond our pay grade. But
It is.
and it's not so important.
I don't know, but I mean, the reason I asked you that question is because I wasn't taught in the Bhagavatam said eyewash was a different planet. But,
Yeah.
I mean,
You can look
it's
in
not true.
So, okay, any other discussions?
Anyone in the Zoom?
Good on my end.
Okay,
What is it that makes people attached to rituals? At least for me, I don't know. I don't see particularly why rituals would be attractive on their own. Just seems like a pain in the butt. Once, at least when I see when I see the stuff that we do and start to get purification from it, like memorizing verses and some of the exchanges that we have with devotees, actually seeing it change my ability to perceive relationships and people around me, then sure, I get attachment to them. But why do people get attached to rituals for their own sake?
Because there's a sense, I think like Pradeep was saying, there's a sense this will make me a better person. There's a sense that if I don't do this, bad things may happen to me. Like superstition, yeah? You can call it tradition, but it really is kind of a superstition. But devotees have the same propensity. There's a story about there was a wedding, and there was a cat that was running around creating trouble. So they finally captured the cat and put it in a basket, closed the lid, and then they proceeded, and the wedding went very nicely. So at the next wedding, people were thinking, "Oh, we want to have a nice wedding. We need to have a cat in the basket." And so it became a whole
Tradition.
tradition. And so, yeah, different temples, different communities, devotees develop certain traditions, certain ways of doing things. And to the outsider, it looks like rituals. And it could be seen that way. But in fact, it's really just different expressions of devotion. I was visiting a temple in Europe one time, and there was a meeting there, and it turned out for the morning program, only the young devotees were there because the older devotees were busy with this meeting. So it was Mangal Arti, and I was there with another godbrother, and the Arti went on, the usual procedures, and then afterwards, after the Arti and Prema Dwani prayers, everyone was kind of looking at us like, okay, what's next? And we were new people there. We didn't know what's next on their schedule. So my godbrother goes, Sarira Vijayal, the 10th. He says, that's my favorite mantra. So the point is that we get in habits, and it's dangerous when those habits become ensconced and become principles like the cat in the basket. You know? It's okay to have different flavors. Each temple is like a different planet in the spiritual world. But one of the important lessons from the Nectar of Devotion is to be able to distinguish principles from details. If we do things in a certain way, and there's so many examples of this. I mean, so many examples. I don't even want to go into all the controversies that arise, this and that. Generally, they're over details. But the principles are few. They're inviolable. Regulative principles, Trinadati Sunichena, giving respect to others, not wanting respect from others, chanting 16 rounds. These things surpass the details. So in spiritual leadership, we have a principle that people before projects, or relationships before tasks. We want to have good relationships with devotees, even if they might do things a little different than we do. Better not to let that interfere with our Sangha. So people are attached to rituals in Israel because, as far as I understand, it's just human nature. Get attached to doing things a certain way. But as Brahmins, as broad-minded individuals, we want to be able to recognize that devotion will express itself in different ways. I'm sorry, it was Phil who was asking that. Yeah, Phil, sorry. Yeah, so devotion will express itself in different ways. Devotees we appear to be very homogeneous to the outsiders, right?
Yeah.
And you all eat the same food, you say the same mantras, you all say Hari Bol. Hari Bol has about 10 different meanings. It can mean hello, Hari Bol. It can mean goodbye, Hari Bol. It can mean...
That's so true.
Yeah.
Everything is.
It can mean chastisement, Hari Bol.
How are you?
It can mean celebration, Hari Bol.
It's so true.
So we appear to be very like-minded, but in fact, when you get to know the devotees, they're quite different individuals. Am I right?
Yeah, we can see right here.
All right, anything else? All right, it was such a pleasure to be with you. Congratulations on your studies. And, may Krishna bless you to always remain attached to his lotus feet throughout your life.
Thank you.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Jai Kalakanta Prabhu ki jai. Please come back again sometime.
Thank you. Hare Bol.
Would you like any prasad or anything?
Ooh, I have to run, buddy.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank
Nice to see you. Wonderful service.
Hare Krishna.
That was so nice.
Thank you.
Hare Bol.
One verse.
Open the door, Jacob.
You are recognized.
If you look that up, let me know.
Oh, that part.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Israel Prabhu. Mike, Bodhi, Phil.
Hare Krishna.
We all say Hari Bol.
Hare
Hari Bol. Hari Bol. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hare Krishna. See you soon.
Hare Krishna.
Sometime. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare
Krishna
Hare.
Krishna, Hare
Hare
Hare.
Ram, Hare
Hare
Ram,
Rama,
Ram
Hare Ram,
Ram,
Ram
Hare
Ram,
Hare.
Hare
Srila
Hare.
Prabhupada ki Jai. Gaur
Jai.
Premanande. Hare Hare Bol.
Haribo.